Welcome to the first episode of Plead Your Case for the 2024 spring semester. I'm your host, Tyler Zeman. There's a lot going on in the world of sports right now. Today, we'll be here to break all of it down, starting with the NHL All-Star Weekend and the changes they have made to the format. We'll also touch on what happened in the NFL, and there have been some changes in the men's basketball college rankings. We will break those down for you with Selection Sunday slowly approaching. You know what time it is. It is time to plead your case. Back here on Plead Your Case, NHL All-Star Weekend is here, and it comes with some changes. First, the draft is back. No more teams by division, as there will now be 4 teams captained by 2 people each. The skills competition will also now have an individual winner that will be named at the end of it. To get us started here is my panel, Keller, Darrion Allensworth. Guys, how are we today?
Doing great.
Doing amazing.
It is the 9th time since 2000 that Toronto is hosting an NHL All-Star Game, and some exciting atmosphere around it with these changes. We'll start first with the All-Star Game itself. With the captains, one will have a player captain. The other captain will be a celebrity. What do we think about the draft format? They haven't done it since 2015.
You know, I actually don't mind the whole celebrity and the captain thing. I think it's a great thing. It gets everybody involved. It keeps variety and just, I don't know. It looks like it's a fun atmosphere to keep to have such a broad sphere of things. So.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a welcome change. I think when something new is introduced, you always have to kind of give it time to figure out whether you like it or not. The nostalgic part of me really likes how it went from by division and conference, right? Seeing the Metro versus Central or Pacific, that was always cool. But also at the same time, by doing a draft and kind of combining all these great players, now you get to see players who don't normally get to play on the same team play against each other or play with each other. So I like the change. As far as the celebrity captains, I think it's good for publicity for sure for the NHL. There are people who have the favorite celebrity who might not normally watch hockey, might just tune in just because their favorite celebrities on. So I like the changes. I like the idea, and it's definitely something new that the NHL could maybe look to build on in NHL All-Star Games in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you, Darren. I really like the division aspect of it. Each division, you get to play with some rivals that you see multiple times a year. Mm-hmm. You get to play against the other division in the conference kind of for bragging rights. And then at the end of it, you get to see the winner in the West or East, depending on what side you're coming from, which I like that. But I understand how people think it gets stale because the way they did it, they would name the All-Stars. It would basically be the same people every year. Yeah. There was really no adjustments in there. It'd be like maybe a few people, a different goaltender here and there, maybe a few different forwards that were young, up and coming, and were just having a great year. So I could see how it gets stale. I do like the draft because, like you said, that's a very good point. The fact that we'll see different players play with other guys that we wouldn't see before is something that I think is neat, and I think the NHL will be able to kind of market better. You can see a lot of the top stars maybe pair up with another star and kind of go at it and make some just cool plays that the All-Star Game really brings out. Is there any changes you would make to the All-Star Game itself? Is there something that you don't like that they are bringing in this year? Or is there something else you would add to it to add another layer to the game itself?
I like how they're doing with the introduction of the National Women's Hockey League, how they're doing a 3-on-3 and they're showcasing in the All-Star Game. I thought that was a great addition, and obviously they 100% could have been like, oh, since it's in its first year, we're not going to include it in the All-Star Game. I'm glad that they chose the route that they're going to do it because if you check social media, there's a large amount of people who are interested in the Women's Hockey League, a lot of young girls who are really inspired by those players and that league, and how now that we've had the WNBA, now that we have the Women's Hockey League, there are a lot of there's a whole another fan base that I think is kind of brought forward that now watches the NHL and will watch it because of the Women's hockey, the 3-on-3.
Cool. Anything you would like to change about it?
No, I completely agree. Like I said, the more variety that you have with everything, so with the celebrities and then including the women, just broaden the whole spectrum in general. So
The All-Star Game wasn't the only thing that got a change. The skills competition also saw a change, a different format where players will play each round, and after so many rounds, we'll start to eliminate certain players until we get down to the final couple of guys. The winner will receive a $1 million prize bonus. It's the same events, same kind of core thing that the All-Star Game typically has in the skills competition. There aren't anything really they're adding in terms of the games, but maybe a little bit more competitiveness considering there's so much on the line.
Yeah, I definitely think it adds competitiveness, especially with the just one person winning the entire thing. Also, I feel like it takes away the predictability of who's going to win one event. I feel like for fastest skater, it was really Connor McDavid was always in the top for that, obviously. Dylan Larkin, Matthew Barzal, one of the top, more so the top faster skaters. So now it definitely focuses on the well-roundedness of the NHL All-Stars and the skill sets that these, instead of just focusing on just one specific skill set that these All-Stars have.
Cool. I know you said you had some picks for each of these skills competition. Who do you think are the favorites in each? So
for the fastest skater, I actually have Cale Makar. And then for the hardest shot, I have Elias Pettersson. That's simple. He just hits the puck hard. Let's say that. Stick handling, I had McDavid. One-timers, Draisaitl. It's going to just be dominated by the best players. And then for the passing challenge, I also had Cale Makar. Accuracy shooting, I had McDavid. Shootout, I had Quinn Hughes. And then for the obstacle course, I had Pasta, because obstacle course is just one of the random things. And then the shootout was actually interesting because it's 8 players will line up on the blue line, 8 goalies will line up on the other side, and the players pick the goalies that they want to go against. So I think that's interesting. I think that's an interesting thing to get started. It's a new thing.
I like the the players being able to choose what goaltenders they get to shoot on. I think that definitely ups the competitiveness, but also kind of hey, I got beef with you. We're gonna settle this in a shootout. And obviously too, these players they're playing against each other, the entire season. They've played against or with each other for years. Especially too, if the goaltender's on your team and you practice against this guy all the time, and what this guy can do because of how you practice with him. So I think that the fact that you can choose now the goaltender you want to shoot on is really cool.
Any predictions for who you think is going to come away with that final spot and be the winner for the first skills competition?
Well-roundedness. I feel like McDavid's kind of an easy choice. Me personally, I think the most well-rounded in the NHL right now is Nathan MacKinnon. He's such a amazing player, great speed, a killer wrist shot. So for me, I think it's going to be Nathan MacKinnon.
Cool. Any prediction?
I think it'll be McDavid.
Okay.
He's the greatest right now. As of right now, he is the greatest.
Well, we'll find out who wins the skills competition. That will be held on February 2nd. The whole All-Star weekend will start on February 1st and go to the 3rd. That will do it for our talk on the NHL and the All-Star weekend. When we come back, we will talk about the NFL Conference Championships.
Jacket Sports Weekly, where you can find everything Waynesburg University sports. Tune in every week to our panel as they take a deep dive into Waynesburg sports. We cover everything from football.
Turning around is Isaac Trout. Did he get the feet down? We will wait for the mark. And they call it a touchdown.
To basketball.
Ball. Got it! We're all tied up!
To softball.
Max this one. Left field. Kiss it goodbye!
Stay up to date with all your favorite Waynesburg University sports with us at Jacket Sports Weekly.
We're trying something new here on Plead Your Case, the first edition of Plead Your Case Undisputed. And I don't think it really needs to be introduced on why the two guys next to me are next to me. If you watched a live draft show last year, you would know why. Today, Logan Lepiscopo and myself is joined by Spencer Frattare and Ron Brown. Got pretty heated on the live draft special talking about the NBA, but today we're taking things to the turf. We're talking about the NFL, and we're talking about the greatest coaches to ever be in the game. Spencer, I'm going to lob it over to you first. who do you have down to start this debate?
Well, I'm just going to say right now, I'm not the best football guy, guys, but I will say we all know who won the NBA segment. It was me. But we'll get that out of the way real quick right now. Look, there's a bunch of guys you can choose from. I think we talked a little bit before the show went live. There's not a clear answer, I guess you could say. Some might think there is with Belichick or John Madden or Lombardi, who the Super Bowl's named after. I'm going to go with Andy Reid. I think what he's done with Mahomes, what he's done with the Eagles, the things he's done with both teams, he's got a great winning percentage with both teams. And the Eagles, he really didn't have. He had McNabb and Vic. They're good quarterbacks, but they're not Mahomes, Brady. They're not those elite guys you think of. So I think what Andy Reid's done with some of the talent he's had over the years and his winning percentage and the 2 Super Bowls he's got with Mahomes, maybe a third coming up, playing the 49ers in this year's Super Bowl, he's up there without a doubt.
I think, with Andy Reid, it's hard because, I think for him to be the GOAT, he has to win a couple more, or at least to be put in that discussion, you got to win a couple more because, I know it's not easy winning Super Bowls and everything's not always about Super Bowls, but just looking at what he did before Mahomes there, he was a good coach with the Eagles. They'd get into the playoffs, they would lose usually, and then with Alex Smith with the Chiefs, he would always he'd get there, but he'd lose as well. So it's kind of hard for me to put him as the GOAT.
So then who do you have then, Ron?
It's open discussion.
Open discussion.
Man.
You got a coach like Bill Belichick, and it's an open discussion?
Because Belichick, it's hard for me because what has Belichick accomplished without Tom Brady?
All the Super Bowls that you mentioned, that if Andy Reid has to get to that GOAT conversation, he has to win more Super Bowls. Belichick's done that.
Yeah, but Belichick has done. What has he done without Tom Brady?
What has Andy Reid done without Mahomes?
He's had better success without Mahomes than Brady has had without Belichick has had without Brady.
You can't compare. They're pretty much almost exact numbers.
How you figure?
Andy Reid's are a little bit better, but we really haven't seen Belichick without Brady. It's been 2-3 years.
He's 249 and 75 without Tom Brady, and in his stint with the Browns, where you should know this, you're a Browns fan. You should know this, you're a Browns fan. You see what it said? This is 83 and 104.
He
had Bernie Kosar and Vinny Testaverde.
But they made it to the playoffs one year.
Once.
And then
the Browns in the 90s made 4 straight AFC championships.
And then he went to the New England Patriots, and every Browns fan was mad we lost them because they went on an insane run.
That was y'all fault. That was y'all fault.
That's what I'm saying. But Belichick's overrated?
That was y'all's fault. Y'all got rid of him. So if he was
But how was he overrated then?
Because like I said, what has he done without Tom Brady? You saw the last 3 years. He struggled without him. Mac Jones was a Pro Bowler.
But he did good without him in Cleveland. You said it, 4 straight AFC championships.
No,
Mac Jones a Pro Bowler?
Hold on. What?
I said before.
We got to hit the rewind button.
Someone hit the rewind button? I said before he got to the Browns.
Can we rewind to Mac Jones being a Pro Bowler?
He was a Pro Bowler.
Pro Bowls don't mean anything. Tyler Huntley was a Pro Bowler.
So you're saying that year, probably Mac Jones' only good year in the league. You're saying he was terrible that year?
I'm saying Pro Bowls don't mean a lot.
I've never considered Mac Jones a good quarterback.
If you look at the quarterbacks,
I'm not saying he was good. I'm just saying he was decent that year. They got into the playoffs that year.
But if you look at Andy Reid and Bill Belichick, Belichick's only really got into the postseason with 2 quarterbacks, and Brady, obviously was that long of his career.
Now, how is it, was it he was that great of a coach, or was just Brady was the system?
You got to look defensively as well. Bill Belichick has had 19 top 10 defenses in his 29 years as a head coach. So it's not just offensive side of the ball. It's not just quarterback play. Belichick, you could say, it's the defensive coordinators he had. But you can't argue 19 top 10 defenses in 29 years.
As a defensive mind, he's a really good defensive mind.
So how is he not the greatest coach of all time?
I'd say it's hard to pick him as the greatest coach.
So who do you pick then?
I say there's a lot of viable options in there.
If there's
somebody like Vince Lombardi, because like you said, who the Super Bowl is named after.
But I mean, I just mentioned that because it's there. That's not really somebody you bring into the greatest coaches.
Chuck Noll, who ruled the 70s and was undefeated in the Super Bowl.
That's like if I said John Madden's out there because Madden's named after him.
No, it's not. Because Chuck Noll beat John Madden. He beat any coach you could think of in the 70s. He was the top dog. He was 4-0.
I'm trying to understand why.
He changed the whole narrative of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
But I'm thinking like
the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 50s and 60s, my team, my Pittsburgh Steelers, they were a joke in the 50s and 60s. He changed them and made them to the Steelers we know today.
The team that goes, 9-8, makes the playoffs or misses
The most historical team in the NFL. He started that in the 70s.
So that makes him the greatest coach of all time?
He has a case for it.
I don't
He's
think
undefeated.
So.
Would you put Don Shula up there?
Don Shula.
He's the only coach to ever have an undefeated team, right?
But he only has 2. Was it 1 or 2?
Super Bowls?
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. If we're talking about purely off of Super Bowls, it's Belichick by a mile. If that's what we're basing this convo off of, it's Belichick.
If we go off Super Bowls.
Because you mentioned that at the beginning.
Technically Belichick has 8 because he got 2 more as a DC.
We're talking about as a head coach.
Taking it to the hoop side, since it's your guys. So Bill Russell's the greatest NBA player of all time, right?
No.
Oof, thank God you're not Colin Rhodes. I mean, good Lord.
So then how does it translate from not sport to sport then?
Because it's the coach. The coach is running it.
But at the beginning of this conversation, you said Andy Reid isn't in that convo because he only has won 2, which he has 3. He won with Green Bay as the tight end coach.
I'm not saying that Belichick is not in the conversation.
He's 100% there.
Yeah, I'm not
saying. He's
at
the top of the
I'm not
convo, I would
saying
argue.
he's not in the conversation. I just said, what has he done without Tom Brady? That's all I said.
So we know what the Super Bowl's going to do for Mahomes, but does Andy Reid winning this Super Bowl coming up, would that do anything to move him up?
I think it will. I think he'll go up
Will be his 4th one.
Yeah, he'll go up higher.
And at the rate
you get at least 4.
And you got to look at this Chiefs team this year. I really don't. They have on the offensive side they have Mahomes and Kelsey. Pacheco,
Kelsey was bad this year.
He's still the best tight end in the league.
Kelsey was bad this year. But I'm saying, for Kelsey's standard, he was bad this year. He dropped a lot of passes this year.
Not as much as that receiving core did.
He was part of the problem.
Travis Kelce is
you're
wide
a
receiver
Raiders
1.
fan. You watched him. Was Kelsey that good this year?
Kelsey was not Kelsey this year, but he still was close to a 1,000-yard season.
And he was still the best tight end in the league. I don't think really anyone came close. Mark Andrews got injured. Laporta had a decent rookie year, but I can't think of a tight end. Travis Kelce is the tight end position, but was wide receiver 1 this year. No wide receiver on that team comes close to Kelce.
As far as late in the
season,
Rashee Rice stepped up late in the season. He did.
We got Andy Reid. We got 15 different coaches for Ron.
Open discussion.
Open discussion.
It is open discussion. How can you pick one over everybody else?
We're gonna wrap up this Undisputed segment here on Plead Your Case. Stay tuned for more Undisputed content, and don't forget to watch the rest of this episode.
The tickets are punched. The road to Las Vegas is all but complete. Only 2 teams remain for the Super Bowl this season. It is the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. We'll start on the AFC side of things first. The Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes took down the Baltimore Ravens 17-10 on the road. It was vintage Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. We'll start with Darrion. Overall thoughts on the game?
This was just a battle of defenses, right? Kansas City's defense and Ravens' defense, both great defense going into the game. A lot of people knew that. I think the biggest surprise for me personally, I shouldn't even say surprise because he's proving it every time he's in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes, that offense did look vintage, like you said, Zeman. It looked like Travis Kelce was as comfortable as ever. One of the greatest playoff performers of all time with the record he broke as well. And I wasn't surprised that Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City offense showed up. I just thought that the Ravens offense would also be able to match it better than they were able to in that game.
Yeah, and ironically, the thing that iced the game, the deep pass to Marquez, Valdez-Scantling, the drops were a problem. They were not going to drop anything on Sunday. They were coming out of there with the win, it seemed like, from the start.
Yep.
Cool. Not the performance we expected from Lamar Jackson.
No, L'America let us down. I would definitely say so. Especially with that pass at the end of the game. Lamar, buddy, what were you thinking? What were you doing? That's triple coverage. I don't know. A heave is all I can say. Ravens really let me down. I don't know if it's right that I cheer for the Ravens as a Steelers fan, but I also saw the video of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce before the game doing what they did to Justin Tucker. And Travis Kelce just recently came out and said that Justin Tucker broke an unwritten rule of football. And I don't know. I think just pitching off his kicking tee is, a little bit of hatred, Patrick Mahomes went from the most liked person in the whole league like a few years ago. And he's starting to itch his way to the top. Chiefs are starting to become like the Patriots, starting to not turn out well for them.
Yeah, go ahead, Ewan.
Just to weigh in on that. I mean, Tucker shouldn't have been there. I understand, I guess, choosing to, that's maybe force of habits where you normally do it, right? But, also at the same time, why would you choose to, be where they're warming up, right? Where Mahomes, Kelce, I don't know. I thought it was fine. I didn't have an issue with it. I thought it was kind of funny, honestly. So.
Well, it's Justin Tucker's home field, right? A, it's his home field.
So?
B, he's kicking from the 5 or the 10, not far at all. And Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes can easily go warm up on the left side or the right side of him. It's not like they're going to use that whole field from where Justin Tucker is kicking, where he's practicing his kicks.
Assert dominance.
I think Justin Tucker was trying to do that, honestly. It's his field. I think that's his right.
Well, there's one thing that Justin Tucker now knows, and that's not to make Patrick Mahomes mad, because we see the result. We know what's next for the Chiefs. They'll be playing 2 weeks in Las Vegas against the 49ers. But what about this Baltimore Ravens team? This is a team that they know they can win a lot of games with Lamar Jackson. Chances are he's probably going to get his second MVP this year. But they just cannot get it done in the playoffs. And just right now, for as long as Patrick Mahomes is on this Chiefs team, it doesn't look like anybody is going to be able to get past the Chiefs in the AFC anytime soon. It's also a big offseason. You look at it, only $5 million in cap space right now. Obviously, they can readjust some things and open up more cap space. But you also got guys like Patrick Queen, OBJ, free agents this season. There could be some changes on both sides of the ball for the Ravens. Do we think that we could see them back in a position like this next year?
I definitely think so. I think the main target that they must focus on in free agency is getting a good running back. Don't get me wrong, the running backs that they always have some good running back that will always produce, but they need a stud. And Derrick Henry is a free agent. If the Ravens can land Derrick Henry, that will put them right back in the same spot. But they do have to give up a lot of players, lose a lot of that cap space to make room for Derrick Henry.
Money. That man, Derrick Henry, the king, is going to cost a lot of money if they're gonna bring him to Baltimore. I do think we could definitely see them back in this position next year. But kind of as Dan Campbell said in the post-game interview, how he wasn't sure that they were going to come back because of how hard it is to get back to a championship game. While I definitely think they have the pieces to, it really does depend on who they're able to bring back in free agency and if they're able to reconfigure their salary cap to allow them to bring everyone back. I don't necessarily think they'll be able to bring everyone back, but I think honestly, for me, it was more, and I don't know if the reason why you said that you would like them to see Derrick Henry is because of how many times or lack thereof they ran the ball in the championship game against the Chiefs. But I think Queen is definitely one of their main targets that they do have to bring back. And other than that, while I do like Odell Beckham Jr., I do think he brings a level of veteran leadership to that team. I could kind of see him go somewhere else in free agency, but I do think we'll see them back in the playoffs next year. Do I necessarily think, though, that they're going to be as strong as they were this year? Because, again, their defense was historic this year. I do not.
All right, we'll flip sides now to the night game, which included the San Francisco 49ers taking down the Detroit Lions 34-31. Again, a 17-point comeback in the second half to allow the 49ers to go on and win that one. Some gutsy calls were made by Dan Campbell, the Lions head coach, that arguably resulted in the loss. We'll start with you, Cole. Just overall thoughts of the game.
You know, it makes me sick watching that game. It reminds me of the Falcons-Patriots Super Bowl. It just made me so sick. Like, I leave one house, go to the other house, Lions already blew a lead. Like, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it at all. And Dan Campbell is a gutsy coach, very gutsy. But sometimes he has to learn when to, like, just put his guns down and just be safe. And that IU catch, insane. That's the huge momentum shift right there. You know, that's a retro bull catch. So,
I get what you're saying, because in hindsight, right, it looked like he should have made the field goal. But, like, in the moment, right, up to that point, he has stuck to his guns and he's gone it for fourth down. And I'm pretty sure it was a stat like they've gone for it 25, 26 times on fourth down, and they were successful at it 20 times. So they had a positive success rate on going for it on fourth down. So, and also too, like, you're up 17-7 going, 24-7 going into the halftime. Like, you get one more touchdown and that game's probably over. Mm-hmm. So in hindsight, obviously it looks like he should have just made the safe call, but also in the game, he knows one touchdown ends the game, and they were basically ends the game. They were successful at going fourth down conversions mostly during the year. I can understand why Dan Campbell made the call, and honestly, that wasn't the call that I had an issue with. I think I had more of an issue of them running the ball at the end of the game, instead of just kicking the field goal while they were there, so that they would know they would actually be able to get the ball back instead of allowing the Niners to run down the clock. So that was the issue I had with.
So let me ask you this, because we've seen this kind of new movement in the NFL with the new NFL coaching hires. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are into the stats. If the stats say you're in an opportunity to go for it, and the percentage is on your favor, the probability is on your side, you should go with it. And we've seen a lot of head coaches try to stick with their guns. But in a game like this, with the first ever Super Bowl appearance on the line for your franchise, is it a moment where you just concede and say, look, this may not be who we are. We may not want to kick field goals in this scenario, but we're going to go for it. We're just going to hang our hats, take the 3 points, and move on to the next possession? Or do you guys agree with it, that he believes in his players, the probability's on their side, they should have gone for it both times?
No, I think that he should have just stuck safe. You're up that much. I think safety is fine at that point in time. It's perfectly fine to kick the field goal, go up 27-7, or, you know, whatever. Just that is enough in itself. You don't have to just continuously always try to go for it, always try to just be a cowboy, basically. You can just stay safe.
Again, I get what you're saying. But, I mean, I don't know. It's an identity thing for me. I mean, this Detroit team, first of all, they got farther than where a lot of people thought they were going to get to this year. So definitely, I think we definitely have to give props to them for making it as far as they did. But, like, also at the same time, there are a lot of other big moments that led to them losing that game more than them not choosing to take the field goal and add the extra 3 points. I mean, the drops by Reynolds obviously was a big one, and the IU catch. I mean, how unlucky can you get for it to bounce off the player's, like, the face mask, and perfectly to the point where IU can just stick his hands out and grab it? I mean, it's unlucky. So I understand your point about playing it safe and how big the moment was, and a lot of other coaches would have chose to kick the field goal. But let's not also forget that Detroit had a lot of kicking problems that year. They've missed a lot of field goals, and maybe that's more of lack of faith in the kicker for Dan Campbell on his part. But I think it's less of a lack of faith and more of a trust in his team and his players to convert on fourth down, like they've done mostly all of that season.
It'll be a long road for the Lions, just like the Ravens, although they have more leeway in terms of cap this offseason. But for the 49ers, just real quickly, 2 games now where Brock Purdy has led game-winning drives, back-to-back games. Is there anything else you need to see from Brock Purdy? I mean, he's brought this team to the Super Bowl. They are in the chance now. Finally, they get over the hump of the NFC Championship. They have the Chiefs. Is it their year? You guys can make your predictions just real quick. Is it the 49ers this year and Brock Purdy, or is it Patrick Mahomes with just how good he's been?
I personally think it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. And while obviously Mahomes plays a huge factor in how these games go, I think it's going to be because of Kansas City's defense and why they win the Super Bowl.
I disagree with that. I actually think that the 49ers, I think that they'll get 6. Their defense is incredible. They have Chase Young.
Oh.
They have Nick Bosa. You know what I mean? Their defense is stacked.
Yes, agreed.
Their offense is also good. They have a lot of weapons. Debo Samuel. Every single part of the offense you can name weapons.
Mm-hmm. But are they going to be able to do it on the offensive side? Do you have enough faith in Brock Purdy to be able to do it on the offensive side?
I actually do. I'm going against Cam Newton's thoughts. I'm gonna say that he does.
Okay, well, we split over here. I'll break the tie. I think it's going to be Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. The way they looked last week, I think they're going to get it done. That defense for Kansas City is also flying around after having struggles a couple of years prior to. But we'll find out. The Super Bowl is 2 weeks away. It's the 49ers. It's the Chiefs. But that will do it for our NFL segment. When we come back, we have college basketball on slate. So don't go anywhere. You're watching Plead Your Case.
Have you ever been to the Everly Library? If not, you should, because it's great. They have books of all different genres: history, biography, fiction. Try The Evolution of Life, Life of Pi, or Jurassic Park. So what if books aren't your thing? Try movies like Frozen, or TV shows like Lost. Books and DVDs aren't the only thing though. Take a trip to the second floor. Welcome to the Writing Center. These tutors will tell you everything you need to know about writing a paper, and they'll help revise your essays. Now let's head back down. Behold, the Knox Learning Center. Need to print something out 5 minutes before your next class because you procrastinated? No problem. You can also print off pictures of dogs. Because, well, you can. So grab your homework, laptop, and textbook, and study diligently. Bring your lunch too. Actually, you can't. That's illegal. Now you know the Everly Library. Stop by anytime. Seriously, it's open all week.
Back here on Plead Your Case for our final segment of the episode. It is college basketball that is on the slate. We'll start on the men's side of things. We've seen some movement up and down over the week in terms of rankings. With March Madness just over 40 days away, we're going to be looking at some contenders, pretenders, and possible underdogs leading up to the big dance. Again, I'm joined by Keller, Darrion Allensworth. We'll start with you. Contenders on the men's side of things for March Madness. Who are you expecting to make deep runs and not get upset?
Deep runs, I have UConn and Houston, because those two always, UConn won it last year, and Houston always makes somewhat of a miraculous run. Even though they're 4th this year, they play in an AAC, which is a little bit weaker than most, weaker than a Big 12 or a Big East or an SEC maybe even too. But I see them also making a big run. They lost by 23 to Texas Tech, which is, and then a 75-68 loss. They beat Texas Tech by 23. And then they lost to Iowa State by 4 and lost to TCU by 1. And those are their 2 losses. And that looks perfectly fine to me. A game can really swing any way against a Big 12 team like Iowa State and a Big 12 team like TCU. So we'll see. They have Kansas coming up on February 3rd. And then the rest of their really tough schedule: Kansas, Iowa State, Baylor, Oklahoma, Kansas again. They're all ranked opponents. So we'll see how that prevails, and that will kind of judge my decision from there.
Yeah, the Big 12, such a tough basketball conference. Darrion, some contenders from your side.
All right, so I do agree with you, Cole. I definitely throw UConn and Houston in there. I have to put Purdue. I have to put Purdue. I know a lot of people watching. They'll be like, Darrion, don't fall into the trap. Listen. And I know, Tyler, we talked about this a little bit as well. I do think Purdue will be better this year than last year. I'm a big Zachary Edey guy. I like him a lot. I think he's a great big man. a great leader, especially for that team. So I think Purdue definitely has to be a favorite for me as well. I mean, anybody watching men's college basketball right now has to agree that UConn looks like such a strong team. I think with Donovan Clean coming back from injury, they're big 7'2" center. Any 7-footer who can hit the threes could be valuable. But especially with him coming back, UConn definitely looks poised to make a deep run at a national championship.
I agree with you. I like Purdue and Connecticut right now. UConn. Look, Purdue they're getting the guard play that they didn't have last year. Mm-hmm. New team, new Purdue. I like them. People say otherwise. That's my opinion. But Houston, guys, come on. I'm out on Houston. Houston, for me, is a pretender. Yes, historically, they have a great defense. They can play defense better than anybody in the country, but I don't think they have the offense this year that can take them far enough. Defense can take you far, but it can't take you all the way in March Madness. You need to have that offensive side of things too, which I don't think they're going to have that production that gets them there. That's just a pretender for me. I'm not high on Houston. What are some teams you guys aren't high on?
But Tyler, just real quick. I mean,
okay.
Well, it's not the phrase offense wins championships.
No,
defense wins championships.
You got to be able to score points, and I don't think they're going to have that enough production from the 5 or enough production from 3-4 guys that's going to get it done in March Madness. Right. Yeah, Shed is a great guard. He's a great player, and he can score as good as anybody on any given night. But he needs help. I mean, if he goes cold one night in March Madness, the games come thick and fast. You got to be on your A game, but sometimes you have that night where you're just not getting that average that you normally hit. He needs help, and I just don't see them giving him help.
So your issue is depth scoring for that too?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I totally disagree with the Purdue thing. Generational chokers, they are the Cowboys of college basketball. They are the Dallas Cowboys of college basketball. This is always our year for Purdue, and then they always choke every single year. So that's where I'll leave that.
Okay. Pretender,
definitely. Them and Tennessee, I would say, are pretenders.
I wouldn't put Purdue in pretender, but I do agree with the Tennessee take. I do think they are a pretender as well.
I also agree with that. SEC has been awful in March as of late, and I think that continues. Yes, Tennessee's head coach, great head coach, but I just don't think the SEC teams are really built for March. What are some underdogs from the men's side of things that you guys have? A team that can go on a Cinderella run or make it deep as a lower seed that people aren't really watching right now?
So for me, it's right now the 13th ranked team, Creighton.
Okay.
I think every year, it feels like, especially recently, they've performed, like they've gone farther than a lot of people thought they would go in March Madness. Trey Alexander, the reigning Big East Player of the Week as well. They're 7-8 in their last, they're 7-8 in their last 8 games. This team just feels like they'll be able to build momentum going into March Madness and go farther and go farther than they have ever in March Madness. I think they'll make a Final Four appearance.
Cool.
I don't know about Final Four, but the Big East is a very, very competitive conference, and with teams like UConn, Marquette, even Seton Hall and Creighton, because Seton Hall actually beat UConn. And it was by 15, 60-75. So, we'll see. I love watching that conference tournament. That's the one that I probably pay the most attention to. And then for an actual real sleeper team, not like somebody who's ranked, because that's a little ridiculous. You need an actual sleeper team. My sleeper team is Grand Canyon University. They lost 68-75 to South Carolina and then 79-86 to Seattle. But they also have a big win over then-ranked San Diego State, 79-73, and they play Seattle again actually tomorrow. So that will really see how things shake up. I think those are really 2 good teams that can make a deep run of Grand Canyon or Seattle. They're both kind of my sleeper teams for that.
Coming on to the show before, I wasn't really familiar with Grand Canyon's game, but I got some interesting stats before we came on here, and I'm starting to like that pick a little bit more. My underdogs, though, are Texas Tech and Auburn. I know Auburn's an SEC team. I know I just slandered Tennessee, but Auburn is giving me UConn vibes of last year. They've not beaten a team this year that could make it out of the first weekend, quite frankly. But the wins that they have had have been so dominant. winning by almost double digits every single time. They're giving me UConn vibes last year, and it's hard to not watch that based off of what we saw UConn do in the tournament. And I like Texas Tech. They're the only team right now in the Big 12 that has a winning record on the road, and 2 of those came against Oklahoma and Texas. You got to be able to win away from home in March with it all being neutral site. So I like the Texas Tech and the Raiders. Anything else you want to add to the men's side before we flip over to the women's side?
I would say that you saying that Auburn plays Tennessee 228, right?
Okay.
That is a big game for them, for both teams actually. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if they're all that. If you really want to go like a real sleeper team, I don't know if that's really a sleeper team. Utah State ranked 17th, could technically be a sleeper team then, or even Memphis. Okay. Memphis is always like half decent. It's just always like a toss up whenever it gets to March Madness season. It's always like kind of like they gonna perform or are they gonna underperform? So
I mean, March Madness, best time of the year. Again, like especially like sleeper picks. Like I like your GCU take. I mean, you never know what's gonna roll around into March Madness. They just have to make it there. So yeah.
All right, real quickly, we'll move on to the women's side of things for college basketball. Big shakeups as well. LSU losing a few nights ago to South Carolina, who currently sit as the 1 seed, followed by Kansas State, Iowa, Stanford, NC State, and Colorado to round out the top 6. For women's basketball, we all know the trick. There's really not many upsets. Normally the teams that are at the top going into March Madness are the ones that make those runs. Real quickly, contender, pretender, underdog, just go ahead, fire away.
So contender is definitely, obviously, South Carolina. I think Stanford also, I'm a big fan of Stanford. I think Cameron Brink, she's setting records there. I mean, 20 rebound, 20-point games as well. And pretender, LSU. I think most of us on the panel will agree with LSU. I just don't think everyone's thinking with the addition of Haley Van Lith that will secure their spot and kind of like make them a strong contender. Could even beat South Carolina with that addition. She just hasn't looked the same ever since she arrived on the team. And in their game where they lost to South Carolina, she only had 4 points. And underdog for me and this is gonna be strange to say, but UConn. Normally you would see UConn as a top women's basketball team, D1 basketball team every year. I think this year they're a little slept up on because of how top heavy and how strong the top 5 really has been in D1 women's basketball. But I think UConn, led by Paige Beckers, they definitely have a shot with her on the team because I just think she's a great player.
I don't know if that's a sleeper. Like I said, I think a sleeper for women's basketball, like you said, is somebody outside of the top 15. So my underdog, I have 2, Princeton and Gonzaga. Those are my 2 underdogs, both outside of the top 15. I think they could make a run. Princeton is generally a good basketball school. So we will see. And then my pretender, actually.
Okay.
Hold up. I have to make sure I get this off my chest.
Okay.
My pretender, besides LSU, is actually Ohio State. And I know that you'll probably disagree with me, but I don't think Ohio State's all that.
I disagree. My contenders right now, South Carolina as the 1 seed, they look the best in the country, also undefeated, the only undefeated team left in the top 25 rankings. And I got to go with my Buckeyes. They made a run last year. They're looking good this year. They're one of 2 teams to beat Caitlin Clark in Iowa this year. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I got to root for my Buckeyes too, though. So I got to go South Carolina and Ohio State as my contenders. So that will do it for us, though, here on Plead Your Case. Make sure you stay tuned to the YouTube page for more episodes of Plead Your Case and much, much more. Have a good night.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.